What's up, Microcosm? This is Taylor, and you are watching the Weekly Voyage episode 1. This channel is dedicated to me going out into the world once a week, finding something I want to draw and drawing it. I have absolutely zero drawing experience. I just started taking a drawing class, but this is me going out, trying to find things and to kind of expand my quote unquote visual dictionary. I know very little about drawing, and I'm hopefully to learn more. I hope to learn more, and yeah, pretty much that. If you're watching this, this is also going to be part of a segment in my weekly podcast called Micro Odysseys. I'm on Micro Odyssey season 1 right now, a few episodes in. But if you want to check that out, I recommend starting with just the latest episode and just continuing on from there. It's something that I'm going to be posting recaps, jumping in every week, and you can just follow along from where I'm at. Um, yeah, so today I am drawing something that I found actually at Disneyland last week. My fiance and I went to Disneyland and we found where we were just going around, and I found this tower at California Adventure. It's called Carthay Circle. It'll be pictured here. And just the lighting was so cool. My goal was to find something to draw that was not too technical in nature. I failed at that. This was super technical. I've only drawn one thing. I've only really learned a few things about drawing, and they were very simple light shadow type stuff. Not too much technical detail. I don't know how to do it, but I tried. I tried my best. So yeah, this is going to be me basically just kind of going over the drawing. I'll include like a time lapse video, and I'll just kind of walk through kind of my steps. So just to start off, I pretty much started off, just doing the lay-in. And I used this Prismacolor red pencil to do that. That's something that the online class I'm taking said that some people do. And, I heard Walt Disney Animation Studios uses these pencils. So I gave it a shot. I'm not sure I really liked the result with it because it just added redness to my picture at the end of the day. I wanted to go light line, so I used the red. And then I used a mechanical pencil to kind of like draw over them and outline. But I did the basic outline and the lay-in with this. One thing that's not really pictured in the video is that I started off in another page and I made the proportions wrong, and the tower didn't really fit on the page. Um, that's okay. Uh, but I started over. One thing is like you'd think that the tower would kind of have like equal sides. It doesn't because I took it from an interesting, different perspective than just kind of head on. But yeah, the lay-in, I just did some basic kind of where I tried to just go lay in parts of the picture that were kind of heavy distinction between light and dark. I didn't try to get every detail with it, even though it looks like I did. I honestly think I needed to break down this land into like simpler components instead of just tackle the whole tower on its own. Um, I think what ended up happening was I had a lot of mismatches on some of the intricacies, which are repeated throughout the um, subject. But at the end of the day, here is my lay-in. Um, I think it came out pretty well. Yeah, I mean, it's the best I could do. Next, I basically just tried to shade in with the weakest shadow, with all of my shadow elements. For my shadow elements, I'm using um, different pencils. My weakest shadow value I used, I believe, was 2B. And instead of using kind of a more continuous, compact set of values, I wanted this picture has a lot of light and dark shadows and just nighttime. It was taken at night, so there's some stuff that's lit up really well and some stuff that's not. And that's part of why I liked it. I thought it was so striking. I loved the subject itself. So I used a pretty broad array of values here. I used 2B and 6B for my shadow values. So I started off shading with 2B. A lot of cool shadows in this, and here is kind of just the result after filling it in with the 2B. Next, I went on and did the darker stuff with the 6B, and some of the elements on the page are much, much darker than others, as you can see. And I don't know if that actually came out good in my final result. I guess we're yet to be seen, but it didn't take too long to fill in the 6B stuff because there were only a few very, very striking, very dark shadows. So you can see those here. Moving on, I started with my weakest light value. Obviously, I'm going to use the page for a lot of light value stuff that's very bright. You can see in the subject, there's a ton of areas that are just really well lit on this structure. And the rest that kind of just look like building that is moderately lit. Yes, I did use, let's see, I used 4H as my weakest light value, which came across, I actually think it's one of the coolest parts of the composition. It adds a really cool contrast between it and the stuff that's really bright, and kind of just adds a cool texture to it. Then, and here's that result. If you want to see it, I slowed it down a little for you. Then for my stuff that my stronger light value, I use 2H. 2H it seemed to work really well for a lot of the stuff that's kind of makes it look like 3D, like from some of the bottom weird structures. They have like a cool tube effect that kind of go up to make the base wider and then a skinnier tower. And so here's that, and this is me with pretty much the shading done. I think one thing that took me a little off guard, because this is really one of my first drawings I've ever done, is there was just a lot of technical finishing touches, and so much of it is so like the lines on it are so crisp. I didn't want to have super thick lines between stuff because this tower has just like a lot of stuff that divides in just a stark contrast one to the other. So I elected to define things using a mechanical pencil, which I thought was just a really thin and defining line. And I think that actually turned out really cool. And I use that mechanical pencil for filling in these tiles too. Tiles are really interesting, and for just kind of drawing some of the intricacies, which I don't know. At the end of the day, I think turned out really cool. But yeah, thank you for watching the time lapse. I think the time lapse turned out really cool, and I'm probably going to keep doing that. I probably need to figure out the best way for me to narrate over it still. But yeah, anyway, this is the end result. Looks like this, and I'll put in a comparison to the subject. I ended up expanding the background from what I initially showed. But if I had to critique my own drawing, I'd say, uh, yeah, some of like this stuff is obviously not the same as this. This looks kind of pretty cool, actually. I could probably improve it a little, but this didn't turn out kind of in the same way, so it looks really inconsistent. Some of the tiling is pretty inconsistent, but I think like at a background, it looks pretty cool. I don't know if I would add in the background shading again. Um, because it was nighttime, I don't know. I'm gonna run with it, I think, and keep it. But maybe I need to like practice that shading because it turned out kind of bad. Other than that, for a first drawing, I'm really proud of this. I'm definitely gonna keep it in the Weekly Voyage files, and I'm gonna keep picking out places at Disneyland to draw. I mean, um, it was just a really fun assignment. I just spent, honestly, it took me probably 2.5 hours to draw. Um, and it was fun. I want to pick things in Adventureland because right now, if you guys log onto my podcast, you'll find I am going through uh, kind of a tiki adventure exotica kind of art installation, and me learning to draw is part of that whole thing. So if you haven't checked it out, check out my podcast. Just start with the most recent episode. Don't go back. They get pretty bad in quality. But yeah, I'm gonna have fun. I'm not only gonna do Disneyland drawings. I'm gonna go to probably other tiki bars and probably just places that are inside the berm, so to speak, which means places that are heavily themed, heavily immersive, and leave the consumer feeling insulated from their normal life, which is kind of the point of my channel. So anyway, yeah, tune in next week. I'll be picking another subject, doing another drawing. I'm going to do a time lapse. Hopefully you learned something about kind of the order in which, the very basic order in which drawing is done, from the lay-in to the shadow, dark shading to the light shading to the finishing touches. I only literally just learned that last week, but it's been really fun to work on. So yeah, tune in next week. I'll have another drawing, and hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you enjoy my podcast. We're developing a whole art installation together. So tune into that. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave them, or you can email me microodysseys@gmail.com. All right, thank you. Bye.